So a lot of people talk about all the successes, and I do too, right, that I've had because I want to be able to educate people, but I have nothing to sell you, right? I'm not looking for your money. I don't need investor money. I retain the equity. So today I want to share a little something about the mistakes that I've made, because I think this will actually help you hopefully make better mistakes when you're acquiring properties. So I'll take you through 2 or 3 different properties, and every single property I make some pretty big mistakes. On this one over here, I'll talk you through a $10,000 mistake I made with not checking the drain or the plumbing of the underground parking. $10,000 mistake I made with the grading of the parking lot, and a $50,000 retaining wall mistake, I thought. Now, I knew the retaining wall needed to be fixed, but as you see in the video, it's much more extensive than I anticipated. So throughout today, I'll show you a few other properties, and I'll even end it with a $150,000 mistake that I made. All right, so let me tell you about this mistake. As I was starting to grow quickly, there'd be things within the inspection that I just wouldn't do. Like a common sense one is if you have any underground parking, you probably want to take a look at what the plumbing looks like underneath. I never did on this property, and it was a costly mistake. In fact, I could have just asked one of the maintenance people that was here, so Craig, who has lived here, 23 years? One of the best things you can do is always ask about what are some reoccurring things that are constantly happening.
Whenever we got a heavy rain, I knew that this was going to flood, and it kept getting worse. And for me to walk to my car right there to go to work at 3 in the morning, I had to take my shoes and socks off, roll up my pants. We'd have about a foot of water in this garage.
I mean, think about that. What a stupid mistake. Tenants were rolling up their pants to be able to get into their vehicle. Fortunately, though, and unfortunately, I didn't realize that until after due diligence and after I closed. But then the same thing ended up happening. Then we found about it. Craig shared a little bit about that it's happening a long time. We were able to find the right vendor, and 6,000 gallons worth of sludge over the course of 20, maybe 30, 40 years was sucked up. And now we don't have the issue anymore. Now, underground parking looks great. It's clean. We don't have the reoccurring issues. But that's a mistake that I've made, and one that you can easily avoid doing 2 things. Make sure you're checking out all the plumbing, especially underground parking, and then ask the personnel that has lived here. Craig would have been the best person for us to be able to ask. He's lived here over 23 years. He knows the things that have been a problem in the past, and that alone would have helped me with this mistake. So another mistake that I've made is really looking at the parking lot and how it slopes. So I think it's easy to see when a parking lot needs to be replaced, but the grading of the parking lot, especially in the Midwest, matters too. This is a good example of the grade before we redid the parking lot. You can still kind of see it has to be really, really steep to be able to get down into the underground parking. In this case, I didn't realize that, and therefore we had to spend $10,000 extra just to grade this differently than it was before. There's actually nothing that was wrong with the parking lot other than the actual grading. So if you didn't know or you weren't looking for it, you would see that the parking lot was perfectly fine. So not only was this parking lot not graded the right way, but as you see here, this retaining wall, you got to always look for things that are impacting your property. And on our property line, unfortunately, the grading from the neighborhood property was actually falling right in on the parking lot. So upon taking over this property, we had to put up a brand new retaining wall to keep the ground in the neighbor's yard up and obviously not falling on cars. Costly mistake that I've made, and one that I won't make again, is that when you're starting to buy bigger buildings like this one, they come with elevators. And I think even though I got a couple different quotes on what it would take to be able to fix the elevator or continue to upgrade the elevator, it's always more costly. I've spent in the 2 years I've owned this property $40,000 more than I underwrote the deal for in just elevator costs. Now, has been working great now, but one thing I've realized about elevators, because now I have 3, 4, I actually think 5 different properties with elevators now, is that elevators are just going to impact your operating expenses, and they're going to be higher than you anticipate. So that is something that I underwrite differently, and something I should have underwrote differently here. So this elevator not only needed to be fixed and upgraded, but it was very, very old. So you can tell everything just takes time too, and that's an amenity. You want to make sure it's quick for your residents so that if they're on the top floor, it doesn't take as long to be able to get the groceries or move in and everything else that comes with transporting their belongings to their unit. All right, so one of the mistakes I made here is I looked at this pool that hasn't been used for a really long time. And I thought one thing I could simply do is be able to repurpose this pool into 4 different units. And what I would do is fill in the pool, bring in HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and then make 4 different units. One of them would be 1 bedroom, and we had plans for 3 2-bedrooms. The nice thing is this pool is located right next to the exterior of the building and already has patio doors, so we could actually have 2 entrances down and out. So that sounded great. But by the time we started getting into everything, into the space, permits, construction costs, and especially rewiring some of the plumbing and the electrical, our anticipated construction costs almost doubled. And fortunately, in our unit turns, we actually were understating our rent. We actually could achieve higher rent in our rehabs than we could down here in the pool, and those rehabs helped offset the mistake that I made by trying to figure out how to put 4 units in the basement of an apartment building. A costly mistake that you can make, and that I made on this roof. Now, this is a massive roof. I mean, look at how far it goes. 120 units. It's a flat roof besides. And I got this roof quoted out quite a bit before I was going to close. But what I didn't realize is that it was way worse underneath the flat roof than we anticipated. Like, we knew that he was patching the roof for years on end and that it should have been replaced, but he didn't have the capital to be able to replace it. So we knew there was going to be some things we would have to do underneath this roof, but not even close to the extent. I mean, this roof, when we did it, probably should have been replaced at least 10 years ago. And if you don't take care of the boards and the sheeting and the wood underneath a flat roof, then you're going to need to replace all that too. So not only is there a new roof, but we had to place a ton that comes underneath the roof. So what you can do is, if you know that the roof is gone and that you need to replace it, not only can you get it quoted before you close on the deal, obviously you want to spot check it in many different parts. We only spot checked it in a few areas on one of the roofs. And of course, the other roof was substantially worse. So let me talk to you about my $120,000 mistake. And I learned a long time ago that if you want to make a lot of money, you also got to make a lot of mistakes, and you got to be able to learn from them. So hopefully you guys on today's video will be able to learn from all my expensive mistakes, but this was a big one. You know, $120,000 pavement asphalt job that we did. And we thought we vetted the person that was doing it. In fact, they've done other jobs for us and they did a great job. But personnel changed, the leader that was over the job changed, and unfortunately, they did a really bad job on this pavement. And the whole job costed about $170,000, but they did not grade it the right way. We haven't had rain in 5 days, and there's still a puddle here. So as you imagine, if we actually did have rain, how bad this would be. And we caught it right away, but to be able to fix this mistake, it's estimated to cost us $120,000. We will fix it, and we're trying to hold the vendor accountable, but right now we're in legal litigation, and it's looking like it's going to end up coming out of our pocket, and they might be even out of business. This mistake here could have been avoided if right away, when we caught the mistake, before we paid the final bill. Usually you're going to pay a third down, a third throughout the project, and then the final third when it's done. We didn't do that. We walked it off. We had an agreement that they'd come back and actually fix this, and guess what? They didn't. So now we're stuck potentially holding the bag. And I think when you do big asphalt jobs or roofing jobs or whatever you're hiring contractors out. Now, I'm lucky enough to have over 100 employees and people actually doing a lot of the work that are employees, not general contractors, not doing huge jobs for us. But if you're going to go with a new vendor, you want to be able to not only vet them, but you want to make sure you're holding on to the majority of the money until the job is complete and you're both satisfied. And we didn't do that in this case. So next time you're doing a big job and you have a general contractor, I would say make sure that you're both on the same page about exactly what needs to be done. Have a written contract. And then in that contract, just make sure you do not pay them that last amount of money until you guys both agree the job is done the right way.